Hello everyone, my name is Barbara and I would like to welcome you all to our latest Novedge webinar episode. In this week's episode, 3ds Max and SpaceMouse Pro workflows. In this webinar, Autodesk Technical Evangelist and SpaceMouse Pro user Chris Murray will demonstrate some of the new features in 3ds Max 2015 and will also cover some very specific workflows that leverage the 3D Connexion SpaceMouse Pro and how it can be used in 3ds Max. Chris Murray is trained as an animator and 3D variety, but considers himself a creative technologist. His daily role is technical evangelist for Autodesk. Before we get going, here's an overview of what we do at Novedge. Novedge is one of the largest online design software stores. We offer a huge assortment of software solutions that cater to virtually every designer's need. Put us to the test and come visit our webpage at novedge.com. And for more daily software news and limited time promotions, keep visiting the Novedge blog and follow us on Facebook, Google+, and Twitter. Coming up next week, Autodesk Inventor 2015, Surfacing versus T-splines. Surfacing is the most challenging discipline in 3D CAD modeling. Is that about to change? With Inventor 2015, Autodesk has brought us a new surfacing technology called Freeform. Freeform modeling in Inventor 2015 is based on a subdivision modeling technology called T-splines, which turns traditional surface modeling expectation on their head. And last but not least, today's presentation is free and is being recorded live. So if you want to rewatch this or any webinar episode, you can find it on our YouTube and Vimeo channel. Just search for Novedge. And now, Chris, the stage is all yours. I will make you the presenter at once so you can show us your screen and dazzle us with your presentation. Are you ready?
Thank you. Yes, I am.
Okay, fantastic.
There you go. Hopefully everybody can see me. Can you see me all right?
Yes, looks great.
Hi everyone, my name is Chris Murray and I am a technical evangelist for Autodesk, specifically with 3ds Max. Today we're going to be taking a look at 3ds Max 2015 and its workflows with the 3D Connexion SpaceMouse Pro wireless device, which I'm a user of. Obviously, I do a lot of Max work, I would hope so, but I also use this device in my workflow. So I'm going to show you how I have integrated it into my workflows and show you a couple of use case examples of how you could possibly use it in your workflow. So let's take a look at the agenda of what I'm planning on covering today. We have a lot of ground to cover. We're going to start with the introduction. Like I said, I'm Chris Murray from Autodesk, and we're going to be I'm going to be showing you my studio setup in terms of how I integrate this device into my working environment. It is an additional piece of hardware. I want to talk a little bit about the type of work that the type of workflows that you would want to employ with this device. I'll talk about the learning curve of the device. I think that's probably one of the biggest questions I get when I'm at a trade show or something like that. When I'm demoing the device, I spend a lot of time at the 3D Connexion booth, and I talk to a lot of users, and it always seems to center on, hey, this is great, but how long is it going to take me to learn? So hopefully I'm going to answer some of those questions for you today. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about at least a little bit of business. The 3ds Max 2015 new feature, Highlights and Extension 1. We've had a lot of news and release information this year around 3ds Max 2015, so I do want to spend the majority of the time in the software, but I do also want to take just a few minutes to give you the highlights of what's new in 3ds Max 2015, and I'm going to do that up front next so that any stragglers or late arrivers to the webinar don't miss any of the actual 3ds Max content. And then, of course, we're going to jump into 3ds Max for the majority of the presentation. We'll be talking about spline modeling, sculpting and retopo, texture painting and animation, all of those things you can use the SpaceMouse Pro for, so we're going to talk about that, and then obviously Q&A. So let's talk about the device first. This is the device that I'm using today. It is the SpaceMouse Pro Wireless. It is 3D Connexion's newest device. I consider it the middle of the road device. This is exactly what it looks like. This is what I have. It's got the 4 buttons across the top, which I'll be using specifically. If you see right here, has these 4 buttons across the top. It has the 6 degree of freedom cap, and you can tip it forward, you can tip it backward, left and right, and do some rotation, limited rotation with it. And then you have your control keys here, and then some viewport keys over here, as well as your menu buttons. And so it's a very nice looking device. It looks really good on the desk, and I have it right next to me. In fact, this is a photograph of my actual workstation. This is where I am right now. And you can see how I have the device here. I use it in conjunction with a number of other tools. And this is probably one of the most important things about the 3D Connexion device, is understanding how it fits into your daily work. So I have a Wacom tablet here. Obviously, I have a keyboard right over here on the side. You can barely see my mouse. I normally also have a wireless mouse, but it died recently and I hadn't replaced it yet, so I'm going old school with an actual wired mouse. And then here's the wireless SpaceMouse Pro right here. And it is, notice I'm a left-handed drawer, so when I use the tablet, I'm using my left hand. And so I have the mouse and the SpaceMouse Pro next to each other because that is how I use them. So I can, if I do need to go back to the mouse quickly, I can if I have to. Now this is a really important point about using the SpaceMouse. It is not intended, nor does it replace everything that you see here. It's not meant to be a one-size-fits-all solution for your workflows. In my case, the way I use it for some very specific things. I don't use it all the time. I use it like some of the modeling workflows that you see, and some things where I'm doing a lot of object inspection or something like that. But there are times when I don't use it at all, and maybe like sometimes, well, I really don't use it for a whole lot of lighting. I don't use it for a lot of materials. So it's not meant to replace your mouse or your tablet. It is a complementary device, and it works that way. So the other question I usually get is, well, I have the puck, but I don't really use it, and it's kind of the breadth of devices here. In fact, let me see if I can bring up my browser window real quick. The devices, just to kind of show you, so they have the breadth of devices all the way down from pucks all the way up to really hardcore devices with the Space Pilot Pro. It really is about the buttons, right? And so a lot of people sometimes start off with the puck and they say, gosh, well, I don't really use it a whole lot. I found that it's these additional buttons that really make the difference in the workflows, because they're all customizable. And when you add various functions onto the extra buttons, it allows for a two-handed work style. So you'll have one hand on the, with your tablet and maybe doing some, specific keyboard shortcuts, but you'll have primary keyboard shortcuts and other things customized onto the device. So, and speaking of customization, and this is the learning curve comment that I wanted to talk about. So the learning curve is really dependent on on the workflow that you're doing. Okay. One thing I really like, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide because we're going to be using it throughout the rest of the presentation once I jump into 3ds Max. But basically, the setup application is really functional. It has several different things of advanced settings and button configurations, and I have a couple of things I'd like to talk to Dev at 3D Connexion about ways I think they can make this even better than it already is. But the point is that this is a menu that I use a lot, and it works really well, and it's easy to get around. So you'll be seeing me use that quite a bit. I want to talk about the learning curve, though. The learning curve is, I'm going to comfortably say it's probably between a 2 to 3 week learning curve and a solid month using it before it really feels like second nature. And that's because of the application specific settings. You're going to find that depending on whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to find that you're going to set up the buttons to be the way you think the device would be best for you. But then after about a week, you're going to, and this is what I went through, you're going to see like, hey, I'm actually going back to the keyboard a lot more for this button than I thought. So then you remap that button to a different button. And then you work on it a little bit and you realize that you're not using some of the buttons that you had thought you would use a lot more. So you can reconfigure those. So it's going back and forth a little bit on the configuration settings, and that is really what the learning curve is about. The device isn't hard to use at all. It's really just setting up your buttons and configurations on the keyboard shortcuts that you're going to want to use. So I just want to spend a couple minutes talking about some of the things that are new in 3ds Max 2015 before we actually jump into the software. So this will only take a minute. I'm not going to show you all of these because there's other things I want to show you in the software. But just to remind you that we shipped 3ds Max 2015 this year with a ton of new features: point cloud support, the new select and place tools, quad chamfer, which was one of the top user voice requests, shader effects, update to populate, 100 particle flow presets if you're doing particles, particle animations, and visual effects. Those things are great place to start and dissect and build your own effects from those. Active shade enhancements, iRay and active shade, enhancements to state sets and our whole compositing workflows and rendering workflows, render pass management. Of course, stereo camera available from the Exchange, and Python and the Max Plus API. And another big one, actually, Unified Scene Explorer. We will actually get into that in a minute. And then at SIGGRAPH this year, for those of you that are on subscription, we introduced Extension 1, which was a huge announcement for us because we've added open subdiv support from using the Pixar and Microsoft libraries. So we have the open subdiv modifier. We also introduced the crease set modifier and the crease set explorer to manage those subdivision surfaces. And we now obviously support the Alembic caching format, so moving data back and forth, moving Alembic data back and forth between Maya and 3ds Max has never been easier. And of course, more enhancements to shader effects, the search browser, and a couple of new shaders. So that's just some of the business that I wanted to cover. Those are some of the new things. The last thing I wanted to let you know is that we are listening. Autodesk is listening. These are all of the user feedback features that have been added in the past release. And if you want to contribute your voice to the conversation, 3dsmaxfeedback@autodesk.com is where you can do that. So enough of that business. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we're going to be doing in 3ds Max. So I'm going to be showing you some workflows in the context of the SpaceMouse Pro. And we're going to be looking at a couple of different workflows. This is more of a teaching webinar than it is a product demo. I'm using, obviously I'm demoing the product, of course, but I'm going to be teaching some things as well. So we'll be looking at spline modeling, sculpting and retopo, texture painting, and some animation work in there. So let me go ahead and jump over to 3ds Max. So here I am in 3ds Max 2015. And first thing I want to talk about, well, what we have on the screen right here is our new point cloud. And I immediately want to show the difference in working with the two tools. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm navigating around the scene using the SpaceMouse Pro. So I am, doing some tumbling and moving around and moving the knob that you saw in the photograph, and really just kind of moving it around and navigating the scene. I'm going to take my hands off the device, and I'm going to go over to a typical, the way someone would typically do it if they did not have this device, and that is with the Alt middle mouse button. So this is Alt middle mouse button. Now, it's essentially the same thing. I can, move around or zoom in and out. The problem is that I have two hands, one on the keyboard, one on the mouse, for doing this simple operation of just inspecting the scene. Whereas if I just stick with the SpaceMouse Pro, I have this particular operation is just a one-handed operation and leaves me open to do other things. So right away, that's one of the things that people really experience. And this is the first thing most everybody does when they get this device, is they start to they just want to see what it does and how it moves around the scene. So Let me just, I'm going to bring up the settings dialog box because I'm going to be going back to this quite a bit here. And I have, all right, so these are the two that you saw in the PowerPoint. I'm going to be talking a lot about this feature right here called dominant and lock horizon. So these are two things that I use quite a bit. You'll be hearing me talk about that. And additionally, the button configuration. So hopefully you guys are seeing that. This is where you can configure all of the buttons, the 4 buttons across the top, or any of the other buttons that you want to use on the device can be configured to anything. And not just to, not just to whatever 3D Connexion thinks you can do that you can set them to. You can also set them to all 3ds Max commands if that's what you want to do. So you can set it to really anything that you want. So I'm going to be referring back to this quite a bit. I'm just going to slide this back off the screen over here so I know where it is. First thing we're going to be taking a look is the spline workflow called what I call surface tools or spline modeling. A lot of people call it a bunch of different things, but it's basically where we create a spline cage and add a surface to it. And I'm going to use the point cloud here to do that. Typically, for point clouds in 3ds Max, it's really meant as more of a reference. Rarely, do we get something as organic as this. But let me go ahead and just select the point cloud, and I'm going to go in, and this is the limit box, and so I'm rotating around here, and I'm just going to go ahead and move the limit box in. This just controls how much of the point cloud we need to see. I don't have to do this, but again, it'll just make things a little bit easier as I start doing this. All right, that's fine. I can leave those other two there. I don't really need to do much of anything else. And I cut off his nose a little bit. I need to bring that back out just a little. All right, give George back his nose. That's good. Okay, so the spline workflow goes something like this. So we're going to start creating what I call a spline cage. Now, I'm going to go use our spline tools. Before I do that, I actually want to turn on some of my snaps. So I'm going to open up my snap dialog box, which is right here. Let's right off the screen, bring it in here. So our standard snaps looks like this. You have vertex, grid points, pivot, all that other stuff. We're going to use vertex, but as part of our point cloud support is also we can snap to the point cloud vertex, which is what I want to do for this. That's a really important point. So I'm going to jump in here. I'm going to go create line, and I'm going to set my initial corner type to smooth. I want both of these to be smooth, and I can start drawing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to line up. This is one of the things I really like about the SpaceMouse is I can get some really subtle movement. You'll notice some dimensions I move really quickly and some I move really slowly. That's because I have different speed settings set up for all the different axes. So I'm just going to start by clicking here. And I'm going to actually be somewhat deliberate in the number of vertices that I choose. And you'll see that since I'm snapping right to the point cloud vertex, that spline is right on the topology of the point cloud there. So that's a great place to start. One thing I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to go into Object Properties. I'm going to turn on Vertex Ticks because I want to be able to see that and reference it later. So I'll go back to the Create Command panel. And I'm just going to start creating some other splines. Now, I'm using my snaps in conjunction with point cloud vertex and standard, regular vertices. So I'm going to be snapping to both so I can make sure that I'm creating lines where I want to create them. So I'm just going to start dragging here, and I'm just going to make a couple of deliberate lines, snapping out from there. And I'm just going to drag those out to there. I'm not really paying too much attention at the moment as to how many vertices. I might need to add them later, but I can come in there and drag those down like that, and I can drag that down like that. Okay, and I'll do one more out this way. Okay, and so I'm going to turn on my select shapes only, and I'm going to get out of create mode and select all those guys. Okay, so there's what I've started to select. Now, when you're working with surface tools, all of your spline objects, before you can start applying surfaces to them, need to be one object. So I'm going to go ahead and reveal some work that I've already done to give you a better idea of what I've got going on. So I'm going to go ahead and unhide this one. Now this is a spline that I'm already working I've got it progressed a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and hide this selection and select this. So we've got, this is our line there, and you can see that these are the lines that I've generated out. I'm going to go to the Modify Command panel, and I have what's called a surface modifier on here, which is where it gets its name. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw that away for right now. And you can see I've already done a lot of spline work. And what I'm looking for with surface tools, or the surface modifier, are what I call 3- and 4-sided regions. Now, if you work with splines, you know that you can't really weld a spline on top of one another. You can weld 2 endpoints, but you can't weld 2 midpoints on top of one another. But you can still make intersecting vertices, which is what this is all about. So I'm going to go ahead and add this surface modifier back on here. And I'm just going to start building out some of the topology here. So I'll go back into surface, or go back into the line. I'm going to show end result so I can see both my spline and my surface at the same time. And you can see here that this area is not constructed. Well, remember I said you need 3- and 4-sided regions, like this area right here. It looks like I have it here. Well, the problem is this vertex right here. I don't actually have a vertex on the loop that's going around this way. I have one on this line, but not here. So how do we fix that? Well, there's a command here called cross insert. And what I can do is I can just turn on cross insert. I move my cursor over where the 2 different splines intersect. If you can see in there, there's a little gap. And this is one of the nice things that I like about the SpaceMouse Pro, is that I can do some quick and easy navigation without ever having to take my hand off the device or the tool that I'm actually going to use. So I'll tap there, and what it's done is it has inserted a vertex where those 2 lines intersect visually, but the lines aren't actually overlapping yet, and we need to close that up a little bit. So I'm going to select both of these vertices, and I'm going to use a command called fuse. Now, this is where the 4 buttons come in on the SpaceMouse Pro. I'm going to hold them down, and you should see on the screen here that I've got the 4 presets here. I have fuse and delete. These are 2 of my spline settings. So fuse, what this does is when I use fuse, you saw that snap together there. It just puts the vertices right on top of one another. It overlaps them. Doesn't actually weld them. So if I select these, you can see it still says I have 3 vertices selected there. So there must be another vertex somewhere floating off. That's all right. And if I grab this, there's 2 vertices there. So that's the way we start building structures. Now you can see here that I am building a structure out this way, but I don't have any interconnecting splines here. So to do this, I'm going to use a really nice tool called Refine Connect. I'm going to bring up my extras toolbar. Now this is a toolbar that I create. It comes in 3ds Max. If you right-click here and choose extras, it just is an extra toolbar that you can put any tool in. It has these 3 tools in it by default. I've added cross insert, which I just used, and refine connection. So a refine connection will allow me to basically click, and it's inserting vertices in line segments. And then I'm going to go all the way out to here, and I'll click there. And then when I right-click and stop, it draws a new spline out, and then that's what gives me my valid surface there. So when I'll do that again. I'll do refine connect here, so I'll grab this, and I can just go click anywhere, and when I right-click, it creates that. Oh, it didn't create one there, but that's all right. So how would we fix that? Well, really simply, I would just go ahead and grab this, and I could just do a simple refine if I wanted to. So I'll just go ahead and refine and insert a vertex there, and now I'll collect that vertex and move it out. I'm still in edge mode, so we'll drag this, move it right back there, and move it right there. And you can see as soon as I get it within the proximity, it generates the surface. So you notice that the 2 vertices are not right on top of one another, so I'll select them and hit the number 1 button key on my SpaceMouse Pro, and it cleans them up. So what it looks like at the end, let me go ahead and hide this, is we're able to actually get something like this with using this method. So I'll go ahead and, oh, he's frozen there, so let's go ahead and unfreeze this guy. There's the surface right there, and I'll go ahead and select it, and you can see there are all of the splines. I'll go ahead and turn off the point cloud, and you can see that's the spline cage that generates this topology with that. So Surface Tools is a great way to actually work with that. So let's go ahead and move on to our next topic, which is sculpting and re-topology. So I'm going to go ahead and open up another scene here. Now this guy needs a lot of work. This guy, by any measure of standard, is not good enough for animation or anything that we need to do. Let me go ahead and select him, and let's go ahead. I'll get this tool, and I'm going to bring up my layer manager here so I can see what's going on. And I'll pop this guy over here, and the mesh is right there. Okay, let me see if I can get it in there. All right. And it's not letting me select my mesh. How about that? So let's close this, and let me reload this file here. This is what happens when you're working live. All right. This is why, because of my filter. There we go. User error. Okay, this guy is not ready for prime time in any way, shape, or form. So we want to do another great tool, another great workflow with the SpaceMouse Pro is working with editable poly. So I'm going to go ahead and close this, and there we go. All right, so we have our tools back here. And I'm going to be using the freeform tools, and I want to talk a little bit about some of these tools and how we can use them for re-topologizing some of the data that we have here. So first thing we're going to do is just look at the paint deform tools, where we have things like relax and soften and paint push and pull, where you can work on the structure if you want. Now this is where the keyboard shortcuts come in as well. Normally if you're working in just a regular workflow without the SpaceMouse Pro, you'd be going to the keyboard for this. Since the Control, Alt, and Shift keys are all on the device, I don't have to leave the device to adjust the strength or the width of the brush. I could just come in here and do it all right on the device. So I'm going to reduce the strength a little bit, and I'm going to open up my paint options and open up my brush options, and we're going to go ahead and turn on mirror. I'm going to set this off to the side right there. And so now you can see that if I need to work on any of the topology of this guy, which is really, in real rough shape, I can go ahead and do it. So if we want to, lose some of the gut a little bit down in here, I can, relax and working in mirror mode. And this is the thing that is really nice about having the device is notice that I'm just rotating and doing little incremental arc rotates while I'm painting. Okay, so I don't have to go back to, I don't have to leave the tablet to do this. All right, I can bring it in closer if I want. This is really one of the more valuable workflows with the device, is coming in here and just working with it in this way. So I can flatten some things up and do a push and pull. Now if I want, this is a positive push and pull right there. Since it's on the device, since the keyboard shortcuts are on the device, I can just hit the Alt key and do a negative push and pull, and I don't have to be moving my hand all over the place. So let me just relax this a little bit. So again, working with this is really great. Now obviously you have the same type of functionality if you were to take this over to Mudbox, but you don't always need to go to Mudbox for quick fixes. And if you're just working here in Max, again, this is a great way to go. So using the freeform paint tools with the SpaceMouse Pro is really great. Now, what I should note here, this is where dominant axis and lock horizon come into play. Because when I'm modeling and doing stuff like this, especially when painting, when we get into that next, I like to be able to really not have any error or variation if I just want to rotate around one axis. And so that's where the dominant axis setting comes in. So if I go to advanced settings, that's the dominant axis. And you'll also notice that lock horizon is on. If I turn off lock horizon, notice it's very easy to kind of go off kilter. and I don't really want that. I like to keep it locked down. So in terms of my modeling and painting workflow, I always like lock horizon, and I always like dominant axis on, because that's what gives me the best control over what it is that I'm doing. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these tools, the polydraw tools, and this is where we can create some new topologies. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit here, and we're going to be, I'm going to turn off, relax, and soften, and I'm going to paint on the surface, and we're going to pick our character here, right here, and we're going to draw new topology right on him. Now, these are all the different types of topologies. I don't have time to go through each and every one, but I want to make sure we cover some of the big ones. So the first one is really just shapes. Maybe you need to add a badge, or maybe you need to add some type of armor, or something to the on top of the topology here. I'm going to open up the polydraw settings here, and we have an option called New Object. And what this will do is this will, if that is turned off, it will create geometry that is part of this object. If it is turned on, this will create new topology that are separate objects. So you can see I'm just drawing here, and it's just literally drawing objects right on top of this of our character's head here, but they're separate objects, right? So I'm going to go ahead and undo those because I don't need those. All right, that's fine there. The next one is similar to splines, in that if we have to make if we want to model something using the spline technique, this actually gives us the ability to draw splines. And of course, it wouldn't be a demo if that didn't happen. So we're going to go ahead and just jump right into where we were before. And there we are. We're right back. And hopefully that won't happen again. So let me select this guy. And we are right there. I'm going to pop back over to our freeform tools. Now, if this does happen again, it's not a big deal. It may be because of the presentation, but that's really not a problem. So draw on surface. We're going to pick this guy. And I'm going to make sure all of my settings are offset a little bit. And new object, and there we are. Okay, so that's good. All right, so I'm going to turn off, I'm going to go to shaded mode and go back to splines here, and turn off vertex mode. So now we can draw splines. All right, so here we are. So remember when we were working with splines in the last presentation, or the last example, we have to create splines that are 3 or 4-sided regions. And so what this will do is this will allow us to generate spline objects. These are actually separate objects that we could then apply the surface modifier to. I'm going to go ahead and let's see if I can just undo that, or I can do Control and delete those splines. All right, that's great. Now this is where this one is a little different, and this is the one that I kind of like the most. So let's open this up. I just want to make sure that my minimum distances, we'll set this down to 2 here. These are just helps us control relative size, and I want to do this as a separate object. And we're going to do topology. Now topology is similar to splines, except we're doing the 3 and 4, we're doing the 4-sided regions right here. So if I just start drawing, and I am going to draw a couple of splines this way, and I'm going to draw a couple of splines this way. And I'm not being too precise right here. And having the device, the SpaceMouse Pro, helps me do that. Now notice the second that I let go of the mouse, it automatically generates topology wherever I have intersections on 4 sides. So if I do that, I'll come over here. Now if I don't like that, because I wasn't really happy with that, I can Control and just delete it and redraw it. Okay, so I'll just do this, just do this, just do this. Now notice it didn't create one there. If I want to add to that, all I have to do is hold down the Shift key, and I can keep going. So I can do this all day long. I can just draw topology wherever I want to. Having the SpaceMouse Pro really helps do that, because obviously I can zoom in and out while the tool is live and just keep things going and now that's cutting through there, but that's fine. We could totally redo this one if we had to. Just delete that line and just delete this line, and we'll just redraw it. It's very forgiving in that regard. So that's a nice way to start generating a bunch of extra topology there. Another thing that is interesting, I should say at least, is surface. Let me go ahead and see if I can get rid of all these guys. We'll just delete these as I go here. And we'll get rid of those guys. All right, so I've gotten rid of that. And let's go ahead and draw with surface. Now, what surface is, if I open this up, surface will actually start drawing quads right on there, okay? And notice that they follow the topology. I'm going to hold down my Shift key, and let's go into wireframe mode. So it's a separate object, but it's directly on top of this. And because of the size of the polygons, of course, I'm getting some interpenetration into the model underneath. That's where this offset feature comes in. If I wanted to, I could change the relative size again. I could set minimum distance down to 1 and hold down the Shift key, and we'll get smaller polygons than we had before. Now, the nice thing about this is once we have created these, we can use our conform tools to adjust it directly on top of the surface. So if I go ahead and do conform, and we'll do conform and move, for example, it's going to move this geometry that I've just created directly on top of the geometry underneath. And again, having the space mouse here is really advantageous for that, because I can quickly move around the object without having to see any of that. If I go to conform relax, it'll relax it a little too much. And I can also go back to push and pull if I want to, and bulge it out, and then go back to conform relax a little bit, and keep working that way. So really a great way, great workflow with the SpaceMouse Pro is doing this type of retopology and you know, taking advantage of it. Let me go ahead and just kind of slide some things over here. That's all right. We'll put this back. All right. So again, using the SpaceMouse Pro with any of the paint deform tools or the conform tools to build that up is a very fast and efficient way to work. Okay, I'm 35 minutes in. I still have a lot to get through, so I want to go on to our next part, and that is working with Viewport Canvas. So a lot like using the paint deform tools, we're going to be using Viewport Canvas we're going to be using Viewport Canvas to actually paint on a model here. So I want to thank Chang Gung Nam for providing this Minotaur model, and really looks amazing here. So great work. So I'm going to go ahead and select this. You can see it already has a UVs on it. This is a really important step if you're going to be doing Viewport Canvas. Any painting in the viewport is you want to make sure that your Viewport Canvas your geometry has UVs. So I'm just going to go ahead and collapse this all down to an editable poly so that we don't have to worry about having the UVW map modifier on there. So we're ready to set this up a little bit. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Viewport Canvas, and I'm just going to dock it right on the side there. So it's nice having dockable menus where you can access all this stuff. So we're going to paint on here, but before I do that, I want to give you guys a little tip and trick. If you've worked with Viewport Canvas before, you know that you can paint with colors and masks. If I go ahead and click on this, if I engage the paintbrush, you can see that, okay, well, where do you want to paint? Because you already have a material on there, and you've got all these different options. You can paint right on the diffuse channel. You can paint specular maps. You can paint all these different things. So I'm going to paint right on the existing map, and I'm going to go ahead and, for those of you who are Photoshop fans, you can dock the layers left or right. So I'm just going to go ahead and dock it right, and I'm going to go ahead and minimize that. And I could even get rid of it altogether if I wanted to, but I'm going to go ahead and add a new layer here. So I've got another layer, and what we want to do is begin painting. So I could just start painting right on the object, and adding detail or whatever. so it's really that simple. But I want to talk about using some of these settings down here. So I'm going to turn that layer off. And we want to actually add some more detail into here using our color and brush settings. So what I'm going to do is using a regular paint tool, I'm going to open up the brush images, and these are for the colors presets. I have two swatches here, one for color and one for mask. So I can use any color I want. So I can start painting there, and maybe we'll do some random brush stroke settings there, and let's see, I could control the opacity there, the hardness of the brush. I can increase the radius as well. This is one of the things that's really nice about the, I guess I'd call it kind of an unintended consequence of the device, is that notice that the farther away the bigger the brush, the closer in the bigger the brush. So I really have more of a, kind of a dynamic control over how I'm painting, whatever it is that I'm painting, without having to adjust a lot of settings. So I kind of like that. Like I said, a bit of an unintended consequence. So I'll make the brush hardness, increase the brush hardness a little bit. All right, so there, that's good. All right, now you can also have a mask. So I'm going to go ahead and add another layer. I'm going to turn this layer off. So we have another mask, and the masks are right under here. They have preset masks, but you can also have custom maps, and this is the tip and trick that I wanted to show you. If you're a Mudbox fan, you know that Mudbox comes with a lot of stencils. I'm going to open up my directory here, and these are the viewport canvas maps that come with 3ds Max, and you'll notice that it is buried way in here. Users, app data, local, Autodesk 3ds Max 2015, ENU, plugin config. I'll just leave this up here a second so you can look at it on replay and find out. This is the actual folder where all this stuff is at. I've gone ahead and I also have a same type of quick shortcut to the Mudbox map. So if you go to Mudbox Stencils, you can find the stencils, or you can find the stamps. All right. Now the stamps are TIFFs, and there's a custom brushes folder here in Max. You can open that up, and this is where you can put custom brushes. But it's really important to make sure that they are TIFFs. So if you want any of the Mudbox custom brushes over in 3ds Max, all you have to do is click and drag those over. So I'll copy that there, and so I have this here. Close that up. Close that up. Now when I reload the custom brushes, there's the Mudbox stencil that I brought over. I just copied it over into the Max thing. So now I can actually use it as a mask. So I can use it as a mask, and now you can see that I can start painting this on here, and we'll increase the radius of this. We'll make it a lot bigger, and we'll just start blotching this in here and making it, in these, wherever I want. Now if I wanted to, if I go under paint behavior, I can mirror it. So and this is kind of important, if you have UVs on there, you want to make sure that you have solid UVs, so I can mirror it and start saving time. And we have all of our layer transfer modes. So if I want to burn these in, or do an overlay, maybe get kind of an interesting splotchy effect, come up here. And again, having the SpaceMouse Pro for this really makes it much faster and easier than if I didn't have it, because I'd be having to do a ton of mouse travel back and forth to get all this stuff. So using viewport canvas for this, especially with the SpaceMouse Pro, is really a good workflow, and I really highly recommend it. So definitely take advantage of that if you have one of these devices. So okay, so that's it for viewport canvas. The last thing that I want to look at, and I'm going to go ahead and do a reset. Don't save. That's fine. And we're going to go ahead and open our last one, which is animation. Now, animation has the SpaceMouse Pro has a couple of specific things in here for animation that I want to talk about. So I have a very basic rig. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of some of the extra stuff in here. And now this is where it gets a little tricky in terms of you need to pay attention to how you have your settings set up, because one of the things, and let me just create a real simple object here. It wouldn't be a Max class without a teapot, right? So I've got our advanced settings here. I'm going to open up advanced settings, and then over here under other options, and now again, remember these are application specific settings, so I'm in 3ds Max. I go to other options, and here's where you access some of the animation tools. So I'm going to say move objects. I go into move object mode. I'm going to close that, and now when I move the SpaceMouse Pro, you can see that my view isn't moving, but my object is moving. Okay, and so I want to be, as an animator, that's fine if it's moving, but notice my view is locked, right? So I want to be able to move back and forth, or at least change perspectives very quickly if I'm going to try to even take advantage of this. Now, I'm not animating anything yet because my auto key button is off, and right now I'm just moving an object. But this can all be animated, and let's go ahead and take a look at that. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this object. I'm going to get out of create mode. We'll delete that object, and so now notice I don't have anything selected in my scene. And I'm able, it kind of reverts back or defaults back to, moving around the scene. But if I select something, so for example, if I select that, notice it immediately goes back into move mode right away. So it's very important to pay attention to what mode you're in. And so for that reason, I've set up one of the configurations to work this way. I've set up the fourth button to be move object mode, because I want to be explicit about when I'm moving and when I'm tumbling or arc rotating around the scene using the space mouse. So I've set this up to move, to enter and exit move object mode at will. And another thing that's really important if you're going to be doing animation is the use of the lock horizon button. And this does take a little bit of practice. So before I start moving a whole bunch of stuff around, let me get this set up properly. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring back our new Scene Explorer. I'm going to dock it off to the right, and I'm going to go into hierarchy mode, and so I can see everything in my scene. You can see I have a camera in here and a couple of other things. I'm also going to go to our motion command panel, and I'm using a cat rig, which is layered animation. So I'm going to add a couple of absolute layers, and I'm going to enter animation mode. Now, the reason you want to do this is because when this button is off, if I start moving things around, if I grab this and start moving, you notice the bone stretches way out there. That's because it thinks when you're not in animation mode, it thinks that you're trying to set up the rig to be used underneath a mesh. When the animation button is on, whatever layer you're working on, it enables IK basically. So if I move this, you notice that it doesn't, no more stretchy bones, but all of a sudden my IK is active here, and I'm moving around. So I can use this to move around here, and I'm going to go ahead and select this object here. And animation is real simple. You can just go enter in auto key mode, and move the character around, and you notice that you get any movements that you do, just like your keyframing. Now remember, I said that I want to be able to see, and because I always need to be checking my silhouette. So I set button number 4 to be move object mode. So I hit button number 4, and now I can move around and check it. I'll hit number 4 again, and I pop back into move mode. I'll move again, pop back out to go check my silhouette, and then pop back in. So that's kind of my little tip for animation. You want to make sure that you're moving in and out. Now, let's go ahead and grab this guy. Another kind of interesting thing here is what I was referring to, the lock horizon button. So my button, my animation is still going on here, and what I can do is I can move this guy around if I want to. This is where it's really important to be able to change your perspective so that you can see what it is that you're doing. If I need to grab this object, I can just grab him and move him back, and it takes a little bit of practice, and this is where I'm referring to the lock horizon button. So if I go into advanced settings, I want to turn off lock horizon because this is going to give me a lot better freedom. If it's on, I'll select this. Let me kind of show you what I'm talking about here. I'm going to move in here. All right, so there's that. And bring back my menu, advanced settings. So right now lock horizon is on. Okay. And right now all I'm really able to do is move. I can move him back and forth, and I can rotate him in one direction, but notice I can't lift a hand up or anything like that. I'll pop over here to change, get a better view of the silhouette. Okay, so I can't really do anything with that. But if I go in and turn off lock horizon, I get the ability to really rotate that a lot better. So I can move the hand, I can move him down, I can rotate it a little bit better, pop in and out of move mode to get a better look at my silhouette. Now, obviously, since lock horizon is off, you know, I'm going to have to deal with that a little bit, but that's fine. Okay, and then finally, the last thing about animation, which is kind of cool. Let me all right, let me turn off auto key here for a second. I just want to kill that key and go back. And that is, it will actually record animation. And this is pretty interesting because if I bring this back up and I go to advanced settings, other options, and notice it says auto key animation. This is essentially the same thing as adding a motion capture controller without having to do any of the extra setup to do it. So if I go ahead and say close this and close this, I'm going to move my time slider back to 0. Actually, let me turn this off for a minute and reposition my view here so we can see what's going on. All right, and I'll go ahead and re-enable that, turn that back on. And now as soon as I start moving this, notice the time slider is moving, all right? So it's adding all this extra animation. It's actually capturing all that animation data. Now, I realize my animation is pretty hideous here. I didn't have it set up. But when I stop moving or stop touching the device, it actually stops. And when I start moving, the timeline picks back up. So you can really get some interesting animation takes using that. So all of this animation on the head was all captured from the device as I was using it. So again, pretty straightforward. It does take a little bit of getting used to. You know, I admit I don't do it for keyframing posing. I don't use this device for keyframe posing, but I'll go in and definitely use it for nuances and maybe some camera positioning, because you can record camera positions on this. You know, definitely worth taking a look at. And it bothers me here that this guy's hand isn't actually doing anything, so I can go down here to the digit manager and, you know, we'll do a, you know, hang loose, you know, change his hand positions and, you know, change his fingers and all that stuff on the fly. So again, you know, really easy to work with that. So now we're recording all of that. So again, I would use it for a lot of refinement for my poses and silhouettes and things like that. So you know, that pretty much covers it, I think. You know, we've looked at spline modeling, we've looked at surface tools. In sculpting and retopo, we looked at our freeform tools, had a quick peek at the desktop there. Viewport canvas, painting tools, and keyframe tools, all using the SpaceMouse Pro in that workflow. So I appreciate your time. I would like to, you know, thank 3D Connexion and Novedge for having me here to do this webinar. I really appreciate it. And let's open it up for QAs. If you want more, if you're not a Max user and you like what you see, please check out autodesk.com/discover3ds Max, or if you're on an older version of 3ds Max and you're looking to upgrade, be sure to check that out. And also, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at Chris M. Murray. I do every Tuesday. I prepare the tutorials that have been going out from the Autodesk corporate account, but I also do tutorial videos on my YouTube channel, which you can find me there. So at this point, I think we'll probably go ahead and open it up for questions.
Thanks, Chris, for the priceless tips and the great tutorial. The instructions actually were great and so clear that I don't think we have any questions, and I don't think anybody needs further explanation.
Oh,
What I want to say is like never again without the SpaceMouse Pro. Never ever again. It looks fantastic and so easy.
It does do a couple of things that you just cannot do in Macs with one hand. I mean, a couple of the workflows are completely invaluable. So it's like I can't live without it in certain circumstances.
Actually, Chris, we just received one question. I've assigned it to you. If you see it, otherwise I'll read it. I've been using. Do you see it?
I think so. I just need to scroll up a little bit.
Okay. Says, I've been using a Space Pilot for years and it still works great. However, in Max 2015, myself and other users are getting runway acceleration. If we move an object, it moves about 10 times speed and it's nearly impossible to move objects. Are you getting any of the runway acceleration issues with SpaceMouse Pro? If not, I'm thinking to upgrade.
So you're in 3ds Max 2015 and you're getting acceleration problems. That's the way I read that. I'm in 3ds Max 2015 extension 1, and I'm not seeing any acceleration problems. I will say that when I got the wireless version of this, I did have to take some time to adjust my acceleration to get it to be what I wanted it to be. And to find that menu, you just open up the advanced setting, open up the menu button on the device, open up advanced settings, and go to speed. And there you can set your device's your speed per axis, I should say. You can also adjust the global speed right here. So you want to make sure that these two, this sets them individually, and then this kind of tweaks the entire thing. So I would check that out. The other thing that it could be, and I never like to say it's the graphics card's fault because that sounds like it's a cop-out, but I would make sure that you're using the latest graphics drivers. I know I'm on an NVIDIA graphics card, and I know that there was a recent driver update for that, and that fixed a couple of issues that I was having. So make sure that's in sync. Other than that, I haven't had any real acceleration issues, but it did take a little bit of time to dial in my sensitivity settings when I was getting used to this new device. Hopefully that helped. You have the Space Pilot. Do you have, are the new drivers? Do you have the new drive? Do you have this? You do have the new drivers? Okay. You have the Quadro 4000 with the latest drivers. Do you have the new software for the Space Pilot?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Okay. Since I'm not using the Space Pilot, I can't speak to that one specifically, but I'm making a general assumption that you want to make sure that these two, once you get these set up, it may require that. I have seen, not related to the SpaceMouse Pro or any of the 3D connection problems, I have seen a runaway, I like your term, a runaway acceleration on certain things, certain operations in 3ds Max. I try to think of the use case when that was. For me personally, I think that ended up being a driver issue.
Cool.
If it stays though, if you're all updated on that, obviously, go to in 3ds Max. You can there's a feedback button. You can let us know if there's a problem there. If let's see, I think it's the speak back under help. You go speak back and you can report a problem. If everything is cool and current, and it's only if it's only on that one machine. So try it on another machine, see if you get the same issue.
Okay, Chris, thank you so much. I think that takes care of the runway acceleration. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. I'm going to take back my screen
Okay.
and say my goodbye. Let's see. Yes, okay. Let's see. Can you see my screen now? Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, I see it.
Okay. Now from the Novedge team, thank you for attending. I want to remind everybody to visit our page at novedge.com and check out both 3ds Max and the SpaceMouse Pro. We have them both, and we have them now with great discount. Novedge is the best way to buy design software online, bar none. For information on the latest specials and new releases on a huge array of design software, join the Novedge network and like us on Facebook, Google+, or Twitter. A reminder that the upcoming webinar will be with Autodesk Inventor 2015, Surfacing versus T-Splines. In this webinar, we will find out what freeform is and why we think you should be taking it seriously. Very intriguing. To rewatch today's webinar or previous webinars, check out the Novedge Vimeo or YouTube channel. There's a lot to choose from in our playlist. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great day, everybody. Thanks for your precious time, Chris, and we'll definitely check you out on Twitter.
All right, great. I'm glad everybody could be here. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.